Hi, go on. We are going to do the analysis part of the poem, The Huntsman. So we are going to focus on our analysis based on the question, excessive worthless talking may ruin people. So that based on that, in our understanding, we are going to analyze the poem. Kagwa hunted the lion. So Kagwa was a very brave man. So even he can challenge the lion also, right? Through bush and forest went his spear with the, the things with the tools like that. He went to the forest to inquire to go for the hunting. One day he found the skull of a man. So one day he found the skull of a man, which is inanimate object, but it is unusual because and said to it, how did you come here? So the Kagwa asked, how did you come here? The skull opened its mouth. That's why unusual. The skull opened its mouth and said, talking brought me here. This talking brought me here is an ambiguous statement. So because ambiguous statement, why do I call it as ambiguous statement? Because it carries double meanings. Because the skull came here because of excessive talking, even that applies to the Kagwa at the latter part of the story. So it has a ambiguous idea. So talking brought me here. So talking too much might ruin people. You can understand slightly. So then Kagwa hurried home. Again Kagwa went home and went to the king chair and spoke. So that is Kagwa was without common sense, without prudent. Duradika hitan නැතුව Kagwa went to the palace and told this matter to the king. In the forest I found a talking skull. The king was silent. That information was not useful for the king, so that's why worthless talking. Worthless talking mean the information the Kagwa given to the king was not useful at that moment. So that is the king was silent at that moment. Then he said slowly, never since I was born of my man. But king was really using a prudent vision and just want to inquire about the situation. So he was just inquisitive about the situation because of the suspense at that moment. Never since I was born of my mother have I seen or heard of a skull which spoke. With the technique of inversion, the king really want to find out the situation. The king called out his guards. So the king called out the guards to go with the Kagwa. Two of them should go with him and find the talking skull. So find the talking skull, unusual skull. But if his tale is a lie, because this is authoritative king, so that was in Kenya. So because of that authoritative rule, the king says if it is a lie made by Kagwa, then the guards had to kill the Kagwa because of his the imprudent act. No word. The Kagwa himself must die. So Kagwa had to pay the price of his life. They rode into the forest. So the Kagwa and the two guards went to the forest, obviously from the horse. For days and nights they found nothing. They couldn't find anything from the forest. As at last they saw the skull. At last the moment they found the skull, and Kagwa said to it, how did you come here? The Kagwa asked, how did you come here? Then at that moment there were two guards and the Kagwa was there. The skull was threatened. Because of the threatening situation of the skull, the skull didn't reply any answer, said nothing. The guard said, kneel down. At that moment the guard says, kneel down. They killed him with sword and spear. They killed Kagwa with sword and spear. Then the skull opened its mouth. The skull opened its mouth at that moment. So that is a kind of a role reversal is there, because the role reversal is there. At that moment, the talking skull talks and asks Huntsman, how did you come here? So that is a kind of a role reversal we see at that moment. Huntsman, how did you come here? And the dead man answered. At that moment the Kagwa was dead. answer talking brought me here, as the question says excessive too much talking always brings disastrous consequences. So when you are getting a question like that, we need to focus about the question. Excessive means that too much talking, so unnecessary talking, so that unnecessary talking is useless for society. So that you have to keep in your understanding, and always we have to govern our tongue. Kata parissan kara ganna ඕනේ, right? මාළුවා නැසෙන්නේ කට නිසා, something like that. So too much talking is always disastrous. That idea we have to have in our understanding. And the talking brought me here is an ambiguous statement according to this context. So that also you need to highlight about the excessive thing in this situation. And the information given by the foolish Kagwa to the king is worthless, because the king was not interested in those kind of information at that moment. So you need to highlight that also, because it's a not useful, it's a frivolous talking at that moment for the king. But so it's worthless talking at that moment. So it brings a kind of a humorous situation. The incidents happens during this narrative, and the skull is talking, that also brings out humor. The change in the roles between the skull and the Kagwa, that also brings kind of a humor during this context. And the absurdity also there, because Kagwa talking to a skull, something it's absurd, it's not a usual thing, right? Brainless skull talking, that's also kind of an absurd situation. Skull feels threatened, so once the skull feels threatened, the skull is dumped at that moment, silent at that moment. When the guards are there, the skull is silent. But once they left, once they kill the Kagwa, the skull talks as in terms of role reversal, Huntsman. So that is something you need to highlight something more about. The silence is gold and mindfulness act, and we need to be witty in our approach. So we need to be witty in our behavior like that. So common sense we need to have ස්ථානෝචිත ප්‍රඥාව and prudent දුරදිග හිතන්න ඕන ජීවිතය and something like that. You need to argue those things. Otherwise, if you don't have these kind of qualities and morals in our life, definitely we have a disastrous, we have a ruined life. So that you need to highlight the moral inside the story. And this is a kind of a ballad that you learn. This is a kind of a ballad also. So that also you need to highlight the techniques. The irregular rhyming patterns brings out the irregular and irresponsible behavior of the Kagwa also you need to highlight. So once you are building up the arguments like that, you can frame your answer, but always add some quotations in between these descriptions. Then you need to highlight the point, evidence and analysis in your answers. Always quotations are compulsory for your exam answers, so you need to provide some more quotations for your answers. So you may try this answer as a homework. So we'll try to meet with another video series with the answer of this question also. Thank you very much for being with me. This is Indica English Academy. Aibo.